Okay.
All right.
Casting.
All right. Thank you, Stephanie. Welcome to today's November 5th Marketing, Regulatory, and Legislative Subcommittee meeting of East Bay Community Energy. I see we have Director and Director Hernandez, soon to be Mayor Hernandez as well. Congrats. And
Thank you.
Director Monroe.
Yep.
Very cool. And Director Root is excused, I believe, correct? Okay. We'll move on to public comment. We do have a few members of the public. Is there anyone wishing to speak to any item not on the agenda today? Any member of the public? Raise your blue hand. *9 if you're attending by phone. Not seeing any raised hands, so we'll move right on to the next agenda item, which is approval of the minutes from October 1st, 2020. There was the link was broken temporarily, but has it been fixed, Stephanie?
It is in process, so I haven't been able to check to see if it's actually posted again.
Okay. The minutes were sent though to the directors. So do I have approval by acclamation to accept the minutes?
I'll move that we approve the minutes.
A second.
Okay. Okay. Approval second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. The minutes from October 1st, 2020 are approved. That was agenda item number 3. We'll move on to agenda item 4, marketing and account services update. Go ahead, please, staff.
All right, this is Dan Lieberman. I will be covering for Annie today, and I believe Stephanie will share a slide presentation. All right.
Okay, there you go.
All right. Thank you. So next slide, please. All right, here's a summary of marketing and account services activities since the last meeting. These are some things that happened in October. We've been doing a lot of marketing for our Resilient Home program, which is our battery storage incentive. Primarily, that's being done through digital advertising, some print advertising, and a lot of email. One thing that I'll hit on a couple times today is our use of this new tool that we have, Granicus Gov Delivery, which is an email platform that allows us to do more robust email. It's a platform that's for government agencies only. I think some of your cities use it for their email. And so we've been utilizing that tool for program mailings, and it's been going quite well. We renewed our sponsorship partnership agreement with the Oakland Roots Soccer Club. As you may recall, we sponsored them when they inaugurated their season last year, got some good branding, were able to attend the games and have a table and all of that. Things have shifted, to mostly online games, not games with live fans in the stadium, due to shelter-in-place rules. So that's a little limiting. On the upside, they're moving up a division into a league that's basically the second league below Major League Soccer. So it's a big step up for them in terms of visibility. The games will be showed on some of the ESPN channels. It's just a higher tier of soccer. And we renewed our partnership with them. We'll get some good branding, and then keeping our fingers crossed that there will be some live events that we can participate in. And also we'll have the opportunity to, for example, do a branded video with one of their soccer players, and hoping to get a player out to one of our renewable energy facilities to film some trick shots and have a fun video there. We have our power content label designed and ready to go. This is a required annual mailer. What's different this year is that we'll be doing a lot of it by email, as we mentioned, using that Granicus email platform. So we have about half of our customer email addresses through PG&E's 4013 file. So that cuts our total mailing down to less than 200,000, I think, pieces that we'll need to mail. And the rest by email, which will be great because we can save paper and save postage and all of that. So it's a more eco-friendly and less costly way to distribute our power content label. We hope to get those out starting next week. We'll be issuing them over time so that we won't inundate our call center. But we'll share information with the board that provides you that some social media and some other content around the power content label in advance of it being released to the public. Then we've got our care enrollment emails. We're continuing to, on a monthly basis, drop emails to customers who we think might qualify for the care discount. Again, we're doing a lot of that on the Granicus Gov Delivery platform, just emailing folks and then following up with people who haven't opened the email. And we're getting some really good traction, good open rates, and increased enrollment in the care program, which is great. We've started using these Heritage Month social media as part of our diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts to recognize different populations within our service area. So you can see a couple there, and I sent one out this morning about like an Indigenous Peoples Month celebration in November. So you'll see we're doing a whole series of those over the course of a year. And then I think I'll hand it over to Kelly to summarize the account services highlights.
Dan, I just want to say really quick, I really like those. I like the backgrounds. Those are pretty cool.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, we had Celery Design, who's our designer, craft those. Well, Kelly, you're on mute. Still can't, I could hear the crackling, but I can't hear your voice. Oh, here you go. Oh, still on mute though.
All right, how about now?
Good, can hear you.
All right, thank you. Sorry, I had joined on my phone, but apparently that did not work. So hi, I'm Kelly Brezovec. I'm our Senior Manager of Account Services, and I'll run through the couple of these next points here over on the right side of the screen. You'll see, so October 1, PG&E changed some of their rates and EBCE followed suit so as to maintain our value proposition of for all of our rates for Renewable 100, Brilliant 100, and that 1% saving for Bright Choice. The changes are minor, but we are continuing to maintain the value proposition. PG&E has also started to sunset their TOU-A rate. This was a residential only time of use rate that was available for voluntary opt-ins. It was sunsetted. It was closed to new enrollments as of January of this year because PG&E knew that they were going to be moving those customers over to this TOU-C, which is sort of the standard time of use rate, the 4 to 9 every day rate. TOU-A is a little bit different in that it doesn't have the time of use rate on the weekends. So they're moving everyone over to that rate. We are following this rate change and how it's being communicated to us very closely because this rate change is sort of a foreshadowing of how PG&E will handle the mass transition of rate changes, of residential time of use rate changes next spring. So we are following this one, making sure that we understand exactly how PG&E is communicating those changes to us so that we know what to do next year as well. And then I'm going to drop down to the bottom one and then pass it to Alex. So we have also been supporting the flex alerts. So, that's another time when we've sent out emails to customers. Anytime that we've gotten a request from the California Independent System Operator to ask our customers to reduce their use. You may recall seeing those in September and I believe last month as well. They sort of came in quick succession. We sent those out to anyone that has voluntarily switched to a time of use rate, or on the residential side, and on the commercial side, any of the customers that have changed to the new B rates, because we think that those are customers that are paying attention to when they're using their energy. So if we send out an alert that requests that folks change when they're using energy, that they're most likely to actually understand those signals. And then for PSPS events, we also sent out messages to everyone that was affected by, in advance of being affected by a PSPS event. So far we've had 2 events that have affected our customers. There was one in mid-October that we thought was going to affect our customers, and then at the last minute, Alameda County was spared. So we've been sending out communications there and tracking those PSPS events, which hopefully we're soon going to be getting out of that season. So I'll pass it over to Alex unless there are questions on any of that.
Yeah, I do have a question about the rate change, about the TOUC rates. So I'm very keyed into this because I've had plug-in vehicle rates for quite some time. So I know that, we make sure we charge only from midnight to 3 p.m. And we try to geek out over it other times and try to run our electric appliances at good times. But I guess my question is, this could be a way of mitigating the duck curve, I would think.
That is the intention. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no worries. And yeah, so I wondered if, EBCE was planning on making if that is a long-term goal that EBCE communicate to ratepayers that to pay attention to time of use so that we can mitigate the duck curve. If we're going to be making, long-term big outreach about this.
Certainly, you'll see communications from both EBCE and PG&E. If you were to stumble onto the Keep It Golden campaign that the CPUC is running already, or if you went down to San Diego or spent some time, I don't remember the exact timing of Southern California Edison and when they're doing their transition, but this is a statewide transition from residential customers being on a rate that is the same rate regardless of the time of day, with a tiered pricing based on how much, sort of a volumetric increase as a customer uses more over the course of the month, to this time of use based rate. So it is a statewide campaign. You'll see, I'd say that you'd see like billboards and stuff like that, but I don't know exactly how the state is changing things based on today's the pandemic. People aren't going out as much, but you will start to see those ads. The Flex Your Power, or the Keep It Golden sort of intro ad that the CPUC has already started is actually a little bit of a tearjerker. I recommend it. It's about, keeping our state clean, clean energy. So I do recommend that. But yeah, EBC will be doing that as well. We're also trying to do our part to encourage our customers to reduce their use from 4 to 9. And actually,
Okay,
while I've
and-
got the floor, oh, go ahead. Sorry, I have one other
Oh,
dot here.
why don't you finish you can finish your point, and then I have one more question.
Okay, I'm just going to jump down to the other note here, which is continue work on the SMUD agreement extension. SMUD is our back office provider, and we are continuing to work on that contract so that we will have continuity through the next year. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. And so one of the things that I remembered about the time of use rates is for myself, the difference is quite striking. The price, the off hour price is less than half of the price at peak time. But I believe that initially the time of use rates are not going to be very different for off hours versus peak hours for most customers. Will the rates be transitioning into more of a difference, or will it always be, for most customers, not much of a difference in rates?
That's a really great question, Chair Pilch. The initial transition is sort of a time of use light, so to speak, in that it is the delta between the two isn't as extreme as you might see, today for the EV rates where they are extreme. Those are, because that's a very select group of customers who have purchased an electric vehicle, and you see what that does to your energy use when you plug your vehicle in. So this is going to be a smaller delta between the two time periods. I don't know that anyone should be in the prediction business anymore with everything, but I do anticipate that you'll start to see that delta increasing, in particular if, as you mentioned earlier, if that duck curve, it still remains a duck, if it doesn't start to flatten out, because the price signal isn't quite high enough, I would think that you would start to see an increased price signal.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anything else on that slide that you wanted to cover, or do you want to hand it off to Alex to?
I wanted to hand it to Alex to talk through. One of the items was the board discussion of Brilliant 100
Great.
options for 2021.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes,
Great.
we can.
Good almost afternoon. Alex DeGiorgio, Public Engagement Manager. My one bullet here is under the Account Services Public Engagement, the third bullet. We've been working closely with the staff of our member jurisdictions as they prepare to, in some cases, change their default service option. That would be in the case of Albany and Hayward, potentially change their default service option, depending on the outcome of our board's discussion at the November 18th meeting around potential changes to Brilliant 100, and as well as the questions around consideration for the nuclear allocation. I've been working most closely with our staff from the cities of Albany, Hayward, since their default service option is currently Brilliant 100, as well as the three new jurisdictions, Tracy, Newark, and Pleasanton, since they are going to be determining what their default service option will be. That's assuming it's something other than Bright Choice. If they don't make any specific requests, Bright Choice is just going to be the default by default. And so what we're doing is we're helping our staff prepare ranked choice preferences for what they would like their default service options to be in Albany and in Hayward particularly. In the case of other jurisdictions that are more typical in terms of having the Bright Choice as the default service option, we're working with staff to prepare a resolution that their councils could consider if the council wants to have access to an option that would include the nuclear allocation. So if the board decides to accept the nuclear allocation, we're asking our member jurisdictions to formally request access to that allocation through a council action by passing a resolution. And to be clear, this would just be to make an option with the nuclear allocation available to customers who might want it, just as another option on the menu of service options from EBCE. And I should mention to this group that I do still have to connect with the staff in Livermore, Director Monroe. So I'll be talking to your city staff soon about this as well. Are there any questions I can answer on that topic?
I just wanted to say thank you for talking to our staff. That's yay. And as I think I've made fairly clear, Livermore, and I do have a question actually, but Livermore is unlikely to say no nuclear as a city. But my question is, how much of a meaningful difference in terms of finances does this make to EBCE? I am concerned that this has become, a symbolic standing ground, a symbolic place that some people are, nuclear is where some people want to place a symbolic stand. This particular piecemeal city by city plan, how much does this help EBCE? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. And as far as on the financial side, I probably have to defer to others on our staff to address the specifics of the finances. But I could certainly say that for the cities of Albany and Hayward, it matters. It could matter depending on what they decide to do. It could matter quite a bit for what their default service option could be. But of course, I would let Director Pilch, speak on behalf of Albany to that. But perhaps Nick, if you're on the line, you could speak to the finance side.
Yeah. So we've been sort of dialing in on the finances, and kind of all along, and I think the numbers that we're finding are still very much in line with this. The cost of Brilliant 100 is somewhere in the order of 3.5% higher than the cost of Bright Choice. But at currently, it's only priced 1% higher. So it's about 2% more or less, 2 to 3%, call it, higher cost. And so that translates to about $2 million. Again, these are not, when this item comes to the full board, you will get, the more dialed in numbers. So they may change a little bit, but not directionally, not significantly, I don't think. But $2 million for the existing customers. So there are, let's just see. Hold on. We have about 15 or so percent of our current load is already on Brilliant 100. So and so for those customers, if they were to continue forward next year without this allocation, and we were to raise the rate, it would cost EBC, call it $2 million. But if new additional load were to go on to Brilliant 100, so for instance, if the city of Pleasanton or the city of Dublin were to want to default onto Brilliant 100, that would increase the costs. The city of Livermore were to want to default onto Brilliant 100, the city of Berkeley. So I think part of part of what we're trying to sort of assess here is there is a cost of subsidizing for existing customers, but then there's also an even greater cost if we continue to offer it as is. And so And that's annual, right? And so presumably these costs will actually continue year over year because the appetite for carbon free is not going to end in 2021, right? There's going to want to be this option available in 2022 and 2023 and 2024 and thereafter. So you start stacking those costs, it obviously grows.
Thanks. I think that helped.
So any other questions for Alex? All right, thanks. Have you finished that, covered that bullet, Alex?
Yes, thanks. I was just going to offer to Mayor-elect Hernandez that I'm also been in touch with Dublin's staff, and it sounds like there may be some consideration in the future for the city to default to a higher option than Bright Choice, but that it sounds like that may come early in 2021. But I'm still working it out with staff and happy to discuss it more with you individually if you like. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's correct. Because we are trying to, be able to get closer to our climate, plan. So that will help us as a city to be able to move forward and our climate action plan. So we will most likely, just depends on what our conversation is in the future, but that is definitely something that we're looking at. And, obviously the residents have the option to be able to opt out of that. And we don't think that the price difference is that big of a difference. That we won't have, many residents come out and be upset about it. So, if we want to be able to meet that, then that's the way we have to head forward.
Great, thanks. Well, I plan to attend those council meetings in case I can be of help to answer any questions.
Yes, that would be great. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, sure. So I think just the last point on this slide was Annie's work with SMUD on extending our agreement to have them as a billing services provider. Those are not conversations I've been party to. Kelly, I can't remember if you have been participating in that. If so, I don't know if you have a quick.
Yeah, I briefly covered that one a little bit out of order.
Right.
So yeah, those are ongoing.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. All right. Well, let's move forward here. Stephanie, can you? Yeah, there we go. Okay. Yeah, here's a quick view of the power content label that we referenced. This is the print version. So this is basically a single fold oversized postcard that will go out to customers who don't have an email on file. And then we have an email version that, it's just formatted as a better flow with fewer photos for customers who do have an email on file with PG&E. And the next slide. These are items that are coming this current month. We've been monitoring the results of the election. I think that all those UUT items passed. Alex, please correct me if I'm wrong.
I think it looks like they're all going to pass, but some have not yet been called, like including Albany. I think they're still counting the votes on it, but I think it's expected to pass.
Yeah, Albany, I think, is likely to pass, but I thought Berkeley was in question, though. I thought there was a possibility that Berkeley's would not pass, which was surprising.
Yeah, I think Berkeley's may be in doubt, but it still hasn't been called yet.
All right. Well,
we'll certainly confirm.
Tracking that and other election results carefully, along with the any potential changes in board seats. Alex, I don't know if there's anything worth noting there based on what you've seen so far.
Well, in case for those who don't know that we did have some we are likely to have some board seats that are open that weren't anticipated, such as Director Hernandez and San Leandro that seat will be open. And it looks like the same is true for Pleasanton, for Director Petton's seat in Pleasanton.
And myself, I'm terming off the council, so I will be replaced by hopefully one of the council members who is just elected, who has worked on the UUT in Albany.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and of course the District 1 county seat as well, Supervisor Haggerty's seat as well.
Thanks, Alex. Let's see. So follow up on the board decision. We've covered a little bit of that already. Power content label, we've covered that. The SMUD agreement. We have our annual privacy policy notification, which is an on-bill message on the PG&E bill, just reminding people it's an annual required notice. And then we have this demand response program partnership with Ohm Connect and also with Rising Sun, where we're targeting customers who we think would benefit from having a programmable thermostat, a smart plug, and a sort of a virtual green house call. Since that Rising Sun typically does an in-home visit where they'll walk around and do an energy efficiency audit. We've partnered with them to do an online sort of talk through version of that. It's with a phone call. So we're doing outbound emails to customers that we think would benefit from that. And then they do an online, phone call audit, and then they'll receive a package that includes a smart plug and an incentive and a programmable thermostat if that works for them, if they would benefit from that. And then we have a little partner marketing coming up with the Switches On campaign, which is from the Building Decarbonization Coalition. And they're going to have some co-branded marketing assets that we can use that just basically encourage building electrification. So you'll probably see that in December in some digital advertising we're doing. Next slide.
Slide. That was the final slide then.
Oh, that was the final slide. Okay,
Yes.
all right. Happy to field any questions that participants may have.
Thank you, Dan. I probably should have spoken up earlier. Albany was mentioned a number of times in terms of the choice of Brilliant 100 and the nuclear allocation. We did send in our letter saying that we would be open to the nuclear allocation, and we just approved that at our recent city council meeting on Monday. And thank you to Alex for attending a couple of our city council meetings and talking to us about that issue. But I do have one last question. We have our next city council meeting on the 16th, Monday, the 16th, and the board meeting is on the 18th. So we're being asked on 2 days before the board meeting to give a ranked choice of our preferred default options. But what struck me is that we won't know what the EBC board decisions will be about options until 2 days later. So is the timing the same for other cities? Are some cities having to rank before the EBC board meetings and some cities afterwards?
We have a board meeting in Livermore on November 9th and November 23rd. So, I think we can do something on the 23rd.
Okay. And
Yeah,
I
we just
think
made
that
sure.
was I think what I was told, EBC staff had a deadline for when they wanted cities to do that ranking, I believe, and that's why it's on our on our meeting before the EDC board meeting. But is that true? Is there a particular deadline, or can staff speak to that? Oh, Alex, you're muted.
Sorry. We had asked all the cities to have their preferences to us before the end of November. And in some cases, in some cases it'll come on December 1st because some cities had their next meeting on December 1st. So at the latest, we're hoping to know from folks by December 1st.
Okay. Okay. Well, that explains it then, because the November 16th meeting would be our last November meeting, and our December meeting and the next meeting after that would be our December meeting, which would be on Monday, December 7th. Okay. So that explains why. And so we'll take that into consideration as we do the rankings. That is my only question. Any of the other directors have questions?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. Any members of the public? Looks like no raised hands there, so we can move on to the, I believe that concludes the agenda item, the number 4, marketing and account services update. So then we go to regulatory and legislative update. Staff, please.
All right, good morning, everyone. Today I'm going to be providing a regulatory update, not a legislative update, just because at this point, legislature has adjourned for the year, and I gave the end of session update at the last meeting. So there's really nothing new to report. If you can go to the next slide, please, Stephanie, on the reg update. So really briefly, just wanted to update you on PG&E's Oakland Clean Energy Initiative application. We're in the process of putting together opening briefs, which are due on the 12th, and reply briefs will be due in December. This application continues to be contentious, and we continue to try to work with parties and with the commission to see if we can help alleviate concerns. But I think that it could be that we see an unfavorable proposed decision from the administrative law judge. If that's the case, then we will continue talking to the commission to see if an alternate proposed decision might be possible in this case. One of the voices that we'd like to try to amplify in this proceeding is the environmental justice community's voice. So we're also trying to work with our local community members to see if there's any opportunity for them to provide some public comments to be considered as part of the proposed decision. The focus of the proceeding has really been on the dispute with Alameda Municipal over the transmission piece, and not so much on the procurement themselves or the benefits of those procurements for the local community. So we're hoping both in briefs and in the conversations we're having with community members to try to change that conversation a little bit. I'm also going to cover resource adequacy and the PG&E ERRA. I'll give you an update on where we're at with that, and there's more to follow on the next slides. Okay, so for RA, there is implementation, and then there's kind of what comes next. So in terms of implementation, as you know, the commission had approved a central buyer construct for the local RA product, and a working group, which included EBCE and CalCCA, filed a report providing a mechanism to give compensation for local RA that we would provide to the central buyer. There was a proposed decision that was issued on the 23rd of October. It largely adopts the CalCCA proposal, but unfortunately, it has a cutoff date of June 2020, and any RA that's in contract before that doesn't count. So again, we're working with the commission here to see if they might consider an earlier date just because we don't think it's fair that these new projects that we're investing in, we would essentially, our customers would lose any local RA value associated with those projects under the Commission's current proposal. So we're hoping that we're making some headway there and that we maybe will see some changes to the proposed decision before it's finalized. We're also working with the CPUC, continuing a dialogue on how we can provide or how we can capture the value of avoiding the need for local RA when we make investments in load reducing distributed energy resources, similar to our Resilient Home program, for example. And right now, the PUC, CEC, and CAISO are holding a tri-agency workshop on the 24th to determine the behind the meter hybrid RA value. And we intend to continue that conversation in that forum. So I think it's an issue that's easily forgotten, but very important if we're going to try to increase our investments in distributed energy resources and use those for reliability purposes. We have to be able to capture the full value of those investments for our customers. Next slide, please. So I mentioned first there were implementation steps on the last slide. On this slide, it's the RA program structural change. You may recall that the RA program is under kind of a process of revision, if you will, and different parties have been suggesting proposed structural changes and refinements to the program. We via CalCCA, along with Southern California Edison, submitted a joint draft proposal back in August. Energy Division at the CPUC also submitted several proposals. So we had been assessing their proposals and comparing them to ours and seeing kind of what changes or modifications might be necessary, but also working with stakeholders to try to continue to build support for our joint proposal. There are some stakeholder workshops being held throughout the month of November, and we think that the recent rolling blackouts are likely to shape that discussion as everybody's looking at how to make sure the grid is reliable going forward. And then there's an opportunity to provide revised proposals in December, and we expect to see a decision sometime in Q1. Next slide, please. So in terms of the PG&E ERRA proceedings, again, there's two kinds of proceedings here. The first one, the forecast application, sets the PCIA rate for the following year and also the bundled customers energy rate for the following year. And then the compliance proceeding is more like an audit proceeding to make sure that whatever PG&E has charged was appropriate and accurate. And so we, as part of the joint CCA group, filed an opening brief on the 30th of October, and we raised some accounting issues related to forecast costs and revenues. We also challenged the way that PG&E was truing up RPS values. And PG&E is due to provide a November update, which will give us a bit more clarity on where they expect their rates to fall. And that update will be provided on the next week. So we'll be eagerly awaiting that update. And then we'll be getting to work with our number crunchers, trying to figure out what it all means. And then it will be a bit of a furious process, making sure that we catch and correct any errors before that update is approved. And then in the ERRA compliance proceeding, just an update, PG&E's agreed to about 132 million of reductions based on CCA requests for various accounting issues. So that's quite a lot in errors that we were able to find by being engaged in this proceeding. We're still in dispute in briefs over about 33 million. And PG&E is trying to relitigate an issue that we won in last year's forecast proceeding. So we're defending against that. And then finally, PG&E filed an application for the cap and trigger. This is where the PCIA is capped, but then once you hit a certain amount of kind of under collections that have been captured in a balancing account, you hit a trigger, and then immediately those amounts that basically are kind of a debt have to be collected. And so PG&E has proposed for those amounts to be collected in 2021. We're looking to see if we can spread that out a little bit more so that it doesn't impact our customers too much in terms of the rate volatility next year. And we attended a pre-hearing conference at the end of October, and we're now waiting a scoping memo and schedule from the judge. Next slide, please.
That was the last slide.
Oh, there you go. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from directors?
I just want to express, that was a lot, and I want to express my appreciation for what's clearly both proactive and work to advance EBC's interests in a careful way. Wow. Thank you.
Agreed. Thank you. Anyone from the public wish to comment?
The attendee is a staff member.
Okay. Well, we have no one from the public. All right. Wonderful. I've lost my place. There we go. Then I believe that was the last substantive item. We have committee members and staff announcements as item number 6. I have already talked about Albany's actions about accepting or not accepting the nuclear allocation. And so I wanted to mention that. I also wanted to mention that this will be my last subcommittee meeting. As I mentioned, I am terming off of the council and out of EBCE. Unfortunately, although it looks like there's been a couple of people elected to city council in Albany who would be readily able to take my place. And so I'm happy for that. Sad I won't be a part of EBCE anymore, but very happy to have been a part of it from the very beginning. And I want to thank staff for presentations today, and also just for being really great to work with in general and doing an outstanding job of supporting EBCE. And that's it for my announcements. Anyone else?
I would like to just express my, first of all, good wishes for the future. What are your plans? But before you answer that, let me also say how much I have learned from you. I still consider myself to be very much a newbie at this, and probably will be until whenever I'm off this, this role. But your careful questions and your passion for this have really been an inspiration, and thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely, Nick. I want to say thank you. And you've always been, a concerned board member at all times. And like Trish said, always asking the questions, and you've been a great representative for Albany. And it's been a pleasure having to have been on the board with you.
Yes, likewise. Thank you both very much. Yeah, I'm going to relax at least for 2 years, but then in another 2 years, you very well might see me in an elected position again. So I intend to stay involved. I'm a little bit of a late starter in the political world, but once I get started, it's hard to stop. So again, congratulations to you, Director Hernandez, and Director Monroe. You'll still be continuing on the council in Livermore.
I have 2 more years at large, and then we just went to districts. So I'll say just a word about that in a second. But I have 2 more years, and then, there's other positions I can run for. So we'll see. I too am a late starter, but boy, this is good work that we all do. At least I hope it, I believe we all, I've learned so much about what it means to be a public servant from everybody, those who are staff as well as those who are elected. I will say that the young woman who won the District 3, which would have been the district I would have been running for, is dynamite. Brittany Kicks her name, so look for her. Although I suspect I'll be hanging on to this, but she's something else. I mentored her along, and I'm just so excited. And then we have Bob Warner as mayor, and that's going to be terrific as well. So, Livermore's happy. At least I'm happy for Livermore. So, and I'm
we're definitely
delighted.
happy. We're definitely happy over in the Tri-Valley.
Yeah, and Melissa, I am so, consider yourself virtually hugged. I'm so excited that you're mayor.
Thank you, Trish. And Nick, make sure you keep in touch with us.
Yes to
Oh,
that.
I will do. Yeah. So one of the council members who seems to be elected is Preston Jordan, who's he's the wonk of all wonks, and I hope he gets this seat because he would be able to understand even much more than I have. I mean, if I seem to understand things, it's because I'm doing a good job pretending sometimes. But he would be an excellent fit for this assignment, for this appointment. So I'm hoping you'll see him. So anyway, yeah, thanks again to all, and thank you, Stephanie, for setting things up. And we will see you at the board meeting in a few weeks.
See you all there. Take
Bye.
care, everybody.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye now.